Welcome to From Stuck to Scaled Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, your guide to navigating growth, transformation, and success in today's ever-changing business landscape. Each week, we'll dive into proven strategies, real-world case studies, and actionable insights designed to help small and mid-sized business owners scale smart, lead stronger, and grow faster. Let's get you unstuck and on the path to sustainable, scalable success. Now your host, Julio Gonzalez.
Welcome back to From Stuck to Scaled. I'm your host, Julio Gonzalez, and today we're diving into the journey of transformation and financial clarity. Too many business owners find themselves bogged down by overly complex financial systems that lead to decision paralysis and ultimately cash flow anxiety. But it doesn't have to be that way. Today's guest is David Nassief, a transformative figure in the world of financial clarity for small business leaders. After a challenging transition at age 63, when he was unexpectedly fired from a corporate position held for nearly 2 decades, David faced financial uncertainty with resilience and creativity. Through his journey, he developed a radical approach to financial management that not only led him to millionaire status by age 69, but also inspired him to help others navigate the complexities of business finance. As a #1 Amazon hot new release author and dynamic speaker, David aims to strip away the noise of over-engineered financial systems, empowering entrepreneurs to achieve operational clarity and security. With insights like his innovative one-page wealth compass and strategies that emphasize automation and pre-funding reserves, he's on a mission to guide business leaders towards sustainable wealth and peace of mind. And let's welcome David to the show. Welcome, David. Glad to have you on From Stuck to Scaled.
Thank you, Julio. I'm excited to be here with you today.
Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your business.
Well, basically, I have, I don't know if you want my story because it kind of applies to this. I was fired at 63, nearly broke, and from a company that was with 18 years. It was a pretty traumatic situation. I was about 2 years away from being broke, I should say. And so I basically started my own company from scratch. I had done it twice in my 40s and failed miserably, plunged me into a 6-figure debt. So it wasn't like a casual, I think I'll just try my own business, because I already proved I was a failure at starting my own business. And so, but I learned some good lessons from that experience. And so I decided to give it one more try, because no one else would hire me at 63. And so I had to hire myself. And basically I became a kind of an independent sales agent on straight commission. The first months were absolutely brutal: cold calls, constant rejection, rookie mistakes. I heard more no's than I ever heard. But Julio, I really believe all that rejection I was getting in the beginning was necessary to build the mental muscles I needed to punch through that dark period. After 10 months of grinding, I hit an incredible milestone. I was suddenly making more money than my good paying corporate salary, 6-figure corporate salary. And for a moment, I thought we made it, but then I realized we hadn't made a single thing, because I'd been making good money most of my career. And look where it got me, on the verge of financial collapse. I needed to learn how to invest, build wealth. It's more than just my business here. I got to have a second deal here that's going to be bringing stability. And so I read 21 books, listened to 13 podcasts, listened to blogs, newsletters, read them, kept putting things on paper. Finally, I got it down, kept refining it to one piece of paper, to a set it and forget it approach, because I had a business to run. I couldn't be worried about my finances. And 6 years later, at 69, I did what I thought was impossible. From terrified of being broke to a 7-figure portfolio and real financial freedom. I now know it is never too late to rewrite your story, because if I can pull it off starting as late as 63, I believe anybody can, with the right direction.
And that is an amazing story. So we definitely want to hear more about that. What was going on at the organization that led to you losing your job at 63? Was it, financial issues, or
No,
because we hear so many layoffs?
Yeah, no, I will tell you directly and bluntly, I was fired. I mean, there was no downsizing. There was no, we're going to, consolidate or whatever. It was, we don't need you anymore. You're of no value anymore to us. You're fired. I mean, it was much politer than that, much more respectful. Sure. But the thing is, I don't blame them, because when I went out and tried to get another job in the corporate world, which my heart wasn't in it, but I figured I had to put food on the table and keep it foot. They were saying the same thing. No, the company that fired you did the right thing. You're of no value to us either. Basically, I mean, very politely and freshly, of course. So that's why I had to start my own business, because no one else would hire me.
So what did you end up doing afterwards? Because you've got a book, you've got a lot of things that that you've set up. So tell us a little bit of that
Yeah.
evolution.
Sure. Basically, what happened was when I started my own business, like I say, the first months were brutal, but after 10 months, I was making more money than my good paying corporate selling. After a year of that, I doubled my 6-figure corporate salary. After a year of that, I increased it another 6 figures. So I was making more money than I ever made in my life. It was the greatest gift they ever gave me to fire me. I should send them a gift basket and a note of thanks for that blessing. Because in all seriousness, I didn't have the guts to quit. I knew 8 years before I was fired that I should have changed. But who quits a job when they're making good money in their late 50s, company car, gets to fly on the corporate jet occasionally? And it's like, who does that? They were just, I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't a stupid fool. I felt like, well, so but I needed that. I really needed that. And I'm grateful it happened. So grateful.
So you're focusing now on financial management. So you've got a lot of tools in place. Talk to us a little bit about what you learned from all of those podcasts.
Yeah, basically what I learned was that it's not as complicated as Wall Street tries to make it to be. Wall Street loves complexity, but the truth is simplicity is for winners, complexity is for victims. And I did not have any more time to be a victim. I was a victim for 40 years, going in circles financially, doing what I thought was right, making good money, thought I was doing investments, but I was getting nowhere, okay? And I'm sure other people were making great commissions off me and all that kind of thing, but I wasn't doing anything. And my runway was too short. It was really more like a helicopter pad than a runway at 63. I just had to figure this out myself. I couldn't trust anybody because I trusted people for 40 years and it got me nowhere. So that's what happened. And I did not write this book, The One-Page Wealth Compass, to be an author. I really didn't. What happened was I was in the deep financial storm of my life, the darkest period of my life. And I was handed a lifeline in the form of this one-page compass that I got basically through inspiration, I think. And I said to myself, it's the ultimate selfishness for me to keep this to myself. I am making a great income on my company. Last year was a record year. My sons joined me. We're doing phenomenal. The last thing I need to do is write a book and get on a bunch of podcasts and promote it. But I just feel it's a passion project. I just feel like I just need to share this because if other business owners, entrepreneurs, even corporate people knew about this, they would realize that you can build wealth a lot faster than they're telling you at Wall Street. And you don't have to give them the cut, because when you don't give them their cut, man, the growth happens a lot quicker than when they get there. And I know it sounds so little, this 1% or 0.5%, but no, that compounds. We're talking about a third of your income, your nest egg can be gone to, I'm not against planners, but for me, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. For me, I needed to keep the money for myself. I don't mean to sound greedy, but I just didn't have the luxury of the time to share it with all these advisors and helpers.
So tell us about the One-Page Wealth Compass.
Sure. As a matter of fact, I'm going to give this to all your listeners for free. Basically, this is what it is. It's literally one piece of paper, and it got me from 63, nearly broke, to 69, a 7-figure portfolio. And basically, it's 2 columns. One is financial trail markers, and it gets you from wherever you are to financial freedom in a step-by-step process. The other side is North Star principles. These are kind of like those guardrails that keep you out of the gutter when you're. I'm the kind of person, I get real distracted by shiny objects and hot tips, and I'm off to the races in the wrong direction. That's what I was doing for 40 years. That's a big part of the problem. Well, this keeps me grounded. When I hear a hot tip or a great idea, I go, wait a minute, that violates this principle right here on my North Star principle. I'm not doing that. Okay, I know it sounds good and it sounds like it's going to get me rich quick, but I can't do this. This is a very hands-off, set it and forget it approach. But when you put it in place, you can still work your 60 hours as an entrepreneur and 80 hours, whatever you want. But now you've got something working in the background for you that's seriously building you some wealth, that no matter what happens, because we all are optimistic as entrepreneurs. We all think, we're going to have an exit that's going to be a 8-figure exit and we're all going to be happy and live. But that doesn't always happen, and it's not because it's your fault. It's just because life happens sometimes and the economy happens. When you got this in the background, I tell you, my last double was a multi-million-dollar double, and it happened in a 28-month period. This is real money that is even beyond what I'm making at my amazing company. And this is not high risk. This is the most boring approach you could take to personal finance and wealth building. Anyways, I hope that answers your question.
So is this something that I can use as an individual and as a business leader?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, every individual and business leader should have it, because here's what it is. Basically, I told you, this is the compass. This is the 30,000 foot one-page view. This is the trail. This is the ground game. So you say to yourself, hey, number three, I'm a number three. I need to get out of debt. But David, can you tell me a little bit more than a couple of sentences here? Getting out of debt's a little more complicated than that. Well, then it says, go to chapter 4. And basically, you just pick up the book on chapter 4 and you go right to it. And it gives you the multiple different ways to get out of debt, depending on if it's business, personal, how it works, and what your personality type is, and how it fits your kind of thing. And so it's like when you have the 30,000 foot view and you've got the ground game, you've got like laser-like focus. You have the clarity that very few people get in the world of personal finance, and that eluded me for 40 years, to be honest with you.
And what do you see most? Let's break it down into two different areas. What do you see most individuals get stuck on when it comes to wealth management?
The big one is paying tiny fees. They're like termites, okay? You don't even notice them until your financial foundation starts to crumble. And then it's a kind of a little late. Okay, let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about, because the fees are huge, okay? Much bigger than most people realize. Let me give you an example. We've got two people here, A and B. They're both starting out in their career, say they're 25. They both decide to put a modest $25 a week away for investing, okay? And they figure if they start early, they'll be good, okay? And so what happens is, let's fast forward 40 years now. But person A, let me tell you how person A invested. They invested in a low-cost index fund, which is what I've learned is an excellent way to do it. Had a 0.03% management fee. That's like practically nothing. Person B went to an actual advisor who charges the full 1%, and they put them in an active fund with a 5.75 upfront load and a 0.66% ongoing management fee. Now, when you go and you put this $25 a week away and you go 40 years out, here's what happens. Person A has a $1 million portfolio based on historical market returns, okay, with consistent $25 a week. Person B has a $570,000 portfolio. Same contributions, same market conditions. The only difference is the fee. But that difference is a $430,000 difference. That is profound, especially when you're looking at just a modest $25 a week away. But here's the tragedy, Julio, that a lot of people don't realize. Person B probably feels like, oh, hey, I had great service. I liked my advisor. He knew my kids' names. We went golfing a couple of times. Little did he realize he did the equivalent of funding someone else's retirement with half of his own money. And here's this, even the biggest thing is, I'm not against advisors, but what I am against are products that enrich Wall Street at the expense of their client's portfolio. And I'm embarrassed to mention this on your show, but for 40 years, I never questioned fees. Those are the rules of the game. That's just how you play the thing. Little did I realize, the rules we don't question can cost us the most. In person B's case, it cost him $430,000. That's why I get so passionate about the fee thing. That's a big deal that a lot of people don't realize.
Well, we've talked about it several times on the show that, the finance education provided to individuals is almost non-existent.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not surprising that is the case, that most people go through life, because for those in the corporate world, in many cases, the education that they get is, at benefit time, when, they talk about 401ks and you should invest in your 401k, and maybe they'll get a little bit, of an individual conversation from, the 401k manager, but that's it. There isn't a lot of, real substantial education that goes to anyone. So it's not surprising, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's just not a lot of great information out there. I mean, now with YouTube and so many influencers, there's a lot more information, but you kind of have to seek it, right?
But not only that, and I love your point, but another part of that is there's a lot of conflicts of interest out there. You got a lot of people pitching stuff that they sound like they're compassionate, caring people, but they really have a hidden agenda, and their plan is to make money off of you. And some of these are famous, and I mean famous gurus that everyone knows their name, and it's shocking what's happening out there. I questioned everything when I did this, and I did the math on everything, and it's amazing the kind of losses we're talking about here just because of ignorance. And when I read those 21 books and listened to those 13 podcasts, here's what I found, Julio. There was a little golden nugget in this one, a little golden nugget in this one, a little golden, but there wasn't all one place. That's why I felt like I had to write the book. I had to take all those golden nuggets that were without conflict of interest because they were from highly credible sources. And again, I checked it out. I did the math, and I said, we need to put this all in one place in one book so people don't have to, read 21 books like I did and listen to 13 podcasts and all that other kind of stuff. And that's why I think it's hard not only to find out what's true out there, but it's hard to find all the different corners they're all tucked away in that you got to read maybe 30 books to figure it out, or 40 books in some cases. Crazy.
Now, in your case, you doubled your portfolio 3 times in 6 years. That's a lot quicker than, most people, 90% of people. How did you accomplish that with your program?
Yeah, let me tell you, because a lot of people, when they hear that, they go, David, it's not possible. The market didn't increase that much in that 6-year period. You're either a liar or you're delusional. Well, I'm neither, and let me explain why. Okay, first of all, I want to say I wasn't day trading. I wasn't chasing crypto. I wasn't trying to time the market. I was doing the exact opposite of that. I was doing something so boring it would put you to sleep. And here's the crazy thing about it, Julio. When the market was down, I was thrilled. When other people were panicking and selling, I was buying more shares at discount prices. My only regret was the market wasn't down more during that 6-year period because I'd even done better than I did. So many people say, oh, you probably got lucky. The market was probably up. No, you don't understand the market. I would have rather have been down than up, actually. And one year in 2022, the market lost 18%. That was my best year. I kept pouring money into that market. And by the end of the year, Julio, I had put over 6 figures in the market of my own money. And guess what my balance was in my portfolio? Less than what I started at the beginning of the year. And wherever else would be panicked and crying, I was doing a little jig. I was so happy. I go, can you believe it? When this thing recovers, I bought these shares at ridiculously nice prices that are great. And so sure enough, the next year when it recovered, I mean, my growth exploded. Okay, but anyways, this is what really surprised me. It wasn't a return; it was the math. There's a thing called Rule of 72. Many of your listeners may be familiar with it, and it says basically, if you're going to get 10% return on your money, it'll take you approximately 7.2 years, or roughly 86 months, to double your money. My first double, once I got my compass in place, occurred in just 30 months. My second one, 13 months. My third one, 29 months, for an average of 24 months. Way less than the expected 86 months time return. But the secret wasn't the returns. I was doing 3 things I finally figured out after 40 years and reading a bunch of books. Okay. 1, I was saving a good percentage of my income right off the top. Before I could spend it, before I could allocate it, before I could do nothing, it came off the top. The minute it hit my account, I pay myself once a month. That came right off. Okay, it's put to the side. Second thing is, I was investing in the right kind of investments. For me, what I discovered is low-cost index funds. Okay, these are incredible. I only own 2 of them. This is how simple my whole thing is. This is why if you're an incredibly busy business owner right now, listen to this going, David, I don't have time. Well, let me tell you how simple it is. I have the 2 of them are, one, I own every publicly traded stock in the United States. That's one fund. My other fund is I own every publicly traded stock outside the United States. That's the second fund. That's it. All I own 2. So for me to go to zero, the entire world economic system would have to collapse nothing, because I literally own every publicly traded stock on the planet. Okay, and I feel very safe about that. I sleep very good at night. I don't worry about any stocks crashing or whatever, because the overall, it hardly affects me at all. And the last thing I did was I learned to use market volatility to work for me instead of against me. So many people invest based on emotions. When the market crashes, they want to get out. That's the worst possible time to get out, to move into cash. Yeah. That's when you actually want to buy. You want to do the opposite of what your emotions are telling you. I'm sure if you went to the store, the department store, they had a big sale, 50% off sale. You'd never go up to the clerk and say, hey, I don't want no 50% off. I want to pay full retail. What's that thing go back to full retail? You would never, they think you're nuts, okay? But yet people do that every day with the stock market. Oh my gosh, it's down 50%. I got to get out. I got to get into cash. No, that's the opposite of what you want to do. And when I stopped working against myself because I got some knowledge and I understood about the market and it's not complicated, Wall Street likes to make complicated, I suddenly started doing much better than I had. Here's the deal, what I found out. I was able to build my wealth twice as fast, and this is the important part, with half the risk compared to I was doing it before and compared to how so many people do it. Once you figure that out, once you get that down, you sleep really well at night. You don't worry about the market. You don't stress about things, and you work intelligently with the market, not against it like most people do.
You're listening to the From Stuck to Scale podcast, and we're speaking with David Nassief around wealth management, both for businesses and individuals. And he's got a great one-page wealth compass that he's going to make available to everyone. And he's got a book that goes with that. David, one of the things that you said very briefly there, kind of in passing, which at least that I've always heard, is paying yourself. And that's one of the things that I like about, working in a W-2 space, and having a 401k, because that comes right off the top. You don't see that. Talk a little bit about automatic savings and having that just not appear basically in your bank account.
Yeah, that is wonderful. If you work for a company that does a payroll deduction for a 401k, please grab hold of that and get the maximum of their match. You want the maximum, whatever, if they're matching 2%, 5%, whatever, go to the maximum of their match, because that is priceless. And you never see the money. It's like taking Social Security out. You don't complain about that because you never see it. Well, the same thing with this. If you just do this and you don't procrastinate, don't say, oh, I can't do it right now because things are tight, but I'll start in a couple of years. No, you need to start as quickly as you can. Now, not stupidly, like I say, on my wealth compass, and I don't know if you can see it on my screen, I think it's dark, but basically, number 3 is getting out of debt. Okay, consumer debt. I'm not talking about mortgage. Consumer debt I'm talking about. Okay, then go to wealth accumulation. So if you still have consumer debt, credit cards, student loans, car loans, the best investment you can make is getting those debts down to nothing. And then once you get that down to nothing, then start taking the money off the top and investing it. I would encourage you to. Literally, it takes me 5 minutes. When I pay myself once a month, I take the money, I transfer it to my investment account. I put some of it in the U.S. market. I put some of it in the international market. I close my account out. I don't worry about it for another 30 days. Now, if you work for a company, you got it even better because they'll do the transfer for you. You don't have to do it yourself, and then everything is wonderful. So that is the smartest thing you do. And the sooner you start, the better. But it's never, as I proved, it's never too late to start. It really isn't.
Yeah, the consumer debt portion, I would argue is the biggest issue that we have in this country financially. Yeah. And I get it. When I was, first married and young, I financed, my life through credit cards, and over the years, it took a long time to clear that debt. But that was a big focus for me. Now you have things like Figna and Fire. How do those play into paying off your debt and the one-page compass?
Well, Figna, Financial Independence Graduate to the Next Adventure, is what I coined in my book. And the FIRE movement is really good, but FIRE, Financial Independence, Retire Early, I'm not into retirement. I mean, I'm 72 right now, and I'm having the time of my life. I just have never had more fun. Talking to you on this podcast is not work for me. It's play, okay? Go and see my clients with my son and working with him. That's play for me. This is not, this is not work. And so I don't ever want to retire. I want to keep graduating to the next adventure. When I wrote this book this year at 72, it was published. That's a new adventure for me, okay? I never was an author before. I wasn't even planning on being an author, okay? And it's exciting. It's thrilling. It's a new challenge for me. You're gonna have to have me on your show at 82 because we'll have to see what I did in 82 because basically every 10 years I seem to do something bigger. But the point is this: that's what makes life fun. The last thing I want to do is financial independence, retire early. Retirement to me, I've heard so many studies about how their health goes downhill, their cognitive abilities goes downhill, their depression goes up and not down, unfortunately. All these things happen. Even their mortality rates are not good. And so In fact, I just heard a study where they did in England where people who retired at 55 versus people who waited and retired at 65, the people who retired at 55 had double the mortality rate of the people who waited and retired at 65. So it's not just about the money too, it's having a purpose and passion in life. Now, you don't have to work if you're financially independent, but you got to find some kind of a thing beyond personal entertainment. I mean, I'm all for personal entertainment, but that's the dessert of life. That isn't the entree, the salad, and the appetizer. That's the dessert. And we should have dessert, everybody, but we also have to, be doing something to help people and to benefit other people too, I think.
Well, I think we have a misconception around retirement because, people wait, till they retire to travel. Well, you may not have the health for that, right? Right. I've always said you need to save, but you also need to spend. So you need to find that time and that money throughout your life, to enjoy it, because you never know when, your ticket's going to be called. And then you may not have the health. But people think, retirement and, sitting there and tending the garden. And if you're tending the garden is great, but the worst thing that you can do is sit in front of the TV. Right? And that's what so many seniors do, right? They get stuck on, one channel, and that's all they see, that's all they hear, that's all they do. And then, nobody calls, and it just gets, overwhelming, and your body just starts to collapse. That happened to my dad. My dad was, a very active individual. He sold his company and sat in front of the TV, and he died, I think it was 3 years later. And the decline was pretty significant. So being active, in your retirement, I think is very important. And that being active can be done in so many different ways, be it a new venture like you're doing yourself, for professionals, what is it, volunteering for SCORE, to help, entrepreneurs. There's so many things that can be done, and it's important to maintain your youth, even in your elevated age. So I'm glad to see that you found this great new adventure, and I look forward to you turning 82 and that next one.
But I got to say one thing. I believe truly, when you were saying this, and it just came to my mind, I think television has killed more people than any war we've ever had on this planet, more than anybody. And I think your dad, and I don't mean to, he could still be alive today if he hadn't sold his business and he was still, had a passion and purpose in life. I don't know. I didn't know your dad, but I'm just saying maybe.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly believe that. He was somebody that needed the activity. When you look at my grandfather on my mom's side, he was that tending the garden guy. He was out picking weeds, planting something, all day long, every single day. He was never in front of the TV, and he lived to a very nice old age. So you could see that contrast right there, between the two of them, and they were both equally health-wise. They were equal health-wise. So David, somebody who today, because it's been 10 years since you were fired and found your financial freedom, somebody today turning 50 or 60, how do they get started, right? Because we know it's not too late. You've done it. So how do they get started, when they're thinking it's too late, or just, they need some help?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I think is, first of all, you don't have to quit your job and start your own company. That's fine if that's your passion, if that's your purpose. But I mean, I know many people who've retired very wealthy and worked for a company their whole life. So it's not that so much as it is getting the knowledge. Benjamin Franklin said the best investment we can make is in knowledge. Okay. And that's why I wrote the book, for two reasons. One, I want to share it with people because why be selfish? But two, I want it for myself because I don't want to forget this stuff. I plan on reading the book maybe once a year just for that. It's a really easy read. It's really fast read. It's not like a deep, book that you're going to go through excruciating pain to read. It's full of stories and case studies, and it's all real life stuff. But I wanted to have it in one place so I could keep sharp on this stuff, because I've gone off track before And I get off track real easy myself. And that's why one thing I do, Julio, and I'll mention this to you, this one-page wealth compass, I sit down on myself every Friday afternoon at the exact same time. It's on my calendar. And I have a 2-minute meeting with myself about my compass. Where am I at? Where I want to go? Have I had any problems this week in terms of the finances, the kind of thing? That has helped me tremendously, because have you ever read a book and you got a really good idea from the book and you says, man, that's going to change my life. And then 2 years later, you're running across the idea again. You go, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I read about that 2 years ago and I was going to do it, but I never did. Well, when you have a 2-minute meeting with yourself every week, and it's just 2 minutes, it's easy to do. You don't do that because, you're looking at it every week and you go, wait a minute, I'm still on this step and I haven't budged an inch off this step because I haven't done one thing. I think I better start doing it. It just keeps me on track. And that's what I recommend for anybody, whether you're working for a company, you're starting your own business, you've been doing your own business, is get the knowledge you need, because ignorance is a killer. Ignorance will not only kill you in your life with health and things like that, but it'll kill you financially. And I know too many people who worked hard for 40 years and really hard. And they're having now to decide between food and medicine or food and rent. And that's a real thing in our society. It's a much more serious issue than people realize, because we're all in our little life working and we don't realize what's happening with people who are in their senior years and the tragedy they're facing because of ignorance through their 40 years of working, making other people rich, but forgetting about making themselves rich.
So there's a bit of a tension there between the simplicity that you're talking about and staying informed. How do you know when you've simplified sufficiently versus just flying blind?
Well, for me, when I made my compass, it took me, I made it like in a couple months, but it was refined over about a 1.5 year period. Okay. After that 1.5 year, Julio, the refinements were so tiny, they were hardly noticeable. Okay. They were just little personal things I tweaked a little bit here and there. So once you get it down and you find as you're reading books that don't have conflicts of interest, listening to sources that don't complicate, and you're starting hearing over the same stuff over and over again, like I say, it's not complicated, it really isn't. Then you can say, okay, I don't have to keep reading 21 books. I can stop doing that right now because I got the system down and I just need to follow it now. I still listen to podcasts because I just love them. When I'm working out at the gym or when I'm driving to a client or whatever, I'll turn a podcast on because I love it. And some of them are financial because I just like to stay sharp. I just like to hear ideas and that kind of thing. And so I don't think we should ever stop learning. I don't care what our age is, and finance is not excluded from that. I think we should always just be tweaking. I mean, I don't mean like hours and hours. I'm talking just things that you enjoy to study and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and the simplicity is I think one of the biggest takeaways here, because so many people think oh, I need to be day trading. I need to be meeting with my financial planner on a weekly basis, and those things just get in the way, right? Yeah. So that 2-minute meeting for me makes my ears perk up because I don't want to be spending more than 2 minutes. So that's something that I think can benefit a lot of people. So when a business owner or an individual starts following your routine, what does that weekly check-in look like? What is that 2-minute meeting that they need to have?
Well, literally, it's taking out the compass, okay, and looking at what trail marker you're on right now. For some people, they're going to be on a very early stage trail marker. Some of them are going to be midway. Some are going to be towards it. But just figure out where you're at, and then what are you doing on that one right now? And it might say every trail marker I have, every point on my compass has a chapter reference. So if you're not the kind of person that likes to read a book cover to cover, you can just take this in strategic, slices here, and you can say, okay, I'm on this step. I'm going to read this one chapter in the book. Okay. Some of these 2-minute meetings, I'll be honest with you, they end up being a 1/2-hour meeting, but not because you're mad about it, because you're kind of inquisitive about, oh, what am I going to do here? Others of them are literally just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay. Matter of fact, once you get the thing going, it's going to pretty much be 2 minutes unless you want it to be something else. And so that's really what it is this is a living, breathing compass. I mean, it really keeps you on the right path, and just following it. It's not any more complicated than that. I mean, I know the advisors and planners want to make it more complicated. And I'm not saying there's no value to an advisor and planner, because some people's personality requires that because they can't control their emotions, even with the right knowledge. And those people need an advisor. But for the most of us, once we get the knowledge, and get the emotions out of the picture, you can pretty much do it yourself. It's not that complicated.
What would you say is one of the biggest myths about wealth building that you see holding people back?
Oh, this is a good one. I don't make enough money. Oh, David, if I made as much money as you made, or if I made as much money as Julio made, yeah, I could invest this stuff, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck, buddy. I don't have that kind of money that you guys have. And so don't be preaching to me about, investing. Okay. First of all, let me tell you, that's a lie. And let me explain why it's a lie. And let me give you an example that maybe helps understand it. NBA players, National Basketball Association players, the average NBA player makes over $10 million a year. Now, I didn't say in their career, Julio. I said in a single year. Okay. Yet after 5 years of retirement, 60% of them are broke, according to the Netflix documentary Broke. And the NFL is even worse. After only 2 years of retirements, 78% of them are either bankrupt or in serious financial stress. And that's according to Sports Illustrated. And let's compare that to Dale Schroeder, a basketball-loving carpenter who made average to below average income his entire career, but he chose to live on less than he earned and invest the difference wisely. He ended up with a $3 million portfolio. That is more money than most of the NBA and most of the NFL and most pro athletes make with their tens of millions of dollars. And he did it on a very tight budget, but he was able to live life to the fullest. He was able to enjoy life, but he just did it within his means. What the compass showed me, and this was an eye-opener, it was a light bulb moment, is making money is different than building wealth. Those pro athletes, they were masters at making money. I mean, how many people do you know personally that make over $10 million a year? You don't probably know many of them, but yet most of them, not all of them, because some of them are very bright, most of them were terrible at building wealth. Dale Schroeder, on the other hand, let's face it, he wasn't that great at making money, okay? I mean, let's be honest, but he was a master at building wealth. Okay, and there's a difference. For 40 years, I was really good at making money. I made a very good income most of my life, but I was a lousy at building wealth. Once I got my compass, I accomplished more in 6 years of wealth building than I had in the previous 40 years. And that's the difference with having direction, clarity, knowledge, and not having, and just winging it and hoping it all works out based on emotions and all that kind of thing.
So David, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about the 3 C's of conflicts. What are those and how do they sabotage wealth building?
These are sabotaging people in ways that most of the people have no awareness that it's even happening to them. There are 3 C's. First one is called the conflict of interest. That's pretty self-explanatory. Someone's paycheck has a tremendous influence over their advice they give you. This is when someone tells you, a student loan officer tries to get you into student loan debt because that's what his job title is. That's how he gets paid. And I can tell you stories of people in their 70s and 80s still paying off student loans, if you can believe such a thing. It's true, okay? And people who are selling insurance try to sell you the whole life policy, not the term, because their commission checks are monstrous on whole life, okay? So that's conflict of interest. There's a conflict of information gap. Let me give you a non-finance example, this one real quick. When I was in my 50s, I went to the doctor for an annual physical. He took a blood test and says, "Oh my gosh, David, your cholesterol is 235. You need to get on statins right away. This could kill you. You could get a stroke." And I said, "Okay, but let me do a little research first." He goes, No. And he told me a story about his dad, how he died of a stroke. And if he only had statins back then, he'd probably still be alive for many more years. I said, "Okay, that was a very touching story, doctor, but I have to do research myself." He was not happy with me, but I left without the statins, okay? Did some research, found out that that how you eat, how you work out has a tremendous impact on your life and your lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And so I did a 180-degree turn in 90 days. I went back after the 90-day turnaround, and he did my blood test again. It went from 235 to 175. I was so excited, and I wanted to tell him what I did. I couldn't wait. He didn't want to hear it. He goes, that's a fad you're doing. He says, "You got to go on statins. That's the only way to do this." He says, "That's a fad. I'm now 72, but my cholesterol is now 165. It's even lower. So that's some kind of fad." But I'm not saying he was a crook. I'm not saying he was a thief. I'm saying he had a conflict of information gap. I'm sure at medical school, what they taught him was the only solution is pills and scalpels. There's no other solution, okay? And that's all he knew. But there's a lot of more solutions out there. But he had a gap in his information, but it could have killed me. I mean, or it could have ended my life early, I should say. And so this day, I'm 72 and I'm on no prescription drugs. I mean, not many 72s can say that, okay? And I'm a very healthy person, okay? The last C, conflict of responsibility. I knew this guy, good, decent guy. He was an investor person, and he got this new investment. He was so thrilled about it. He got people in his church involved in it because they trusted him and they liked him. And he wasn't a crook. He was just a decent guy, okay? Anyways, they invested significant money. One day, the investment advisor found out that the guy who did the investments left the country with the money. They were all scammed on the deal. Now, here's the problem. There was a conflict of responsibility. The people who had their money invested, they assumed that their friend did the research. Their friend assumed the guy offering the investment did the research. Oh, he did his research, all right, but different kind of research. Nobody did the research. Everybody lost money, and everybody lost lifetime friendships, okay, from that experience. So I'm here to tell you, nobody cares more about your wealth than you do. A person's paycheck is a powerful manipulator of truth. And this is something that we all have to understand. We just can't trust people out there. I'm not saying be Mr. Skeptic, but I'm saying verify first, get the information first, because this is your life. And when you're out of money because of bad investments, no one's going to come to your rescue. Nobody. I'm sorry. And the government's not going to, charities aren't going to, you're going to have a miserable situation. So you need to understand the 3 C's. And that's a really big part of what I talk about in my book, because I've seen too many people, just tragic situations.
So last question for you. There are a ton of financial books out there. Why should I buy this one?
That's a great question, because there is, I think, close to 100,000 financial books out there. But the reason I wrote this one is because 2 reasons. One, they all have pieces of nuggets of truth, but I want to put it all in one place, the best nuggets that you can. But 2, so many of these books, they are so boring. Matter of fact, the 21 I read, I have to be honest with you, they had good information, but they were boring as tears. I mean, the charts and graphs and tables and all this dry calculations, and oh my gosh, it's crazy. I says, I got to write this so the average person will get it. And so mine is filled with stories, real life stories of people who succeeded, people who failed, and you can see the difference. And then I present the principle, and people are saying, now I get it, David. I've heard this before, but no one's ever explained it to me in such clear terms. I want to share a quick review I got, because I think this consists so well. He says, this is a clinical psychologist with 25 years experience, no financial background. He was facing his own career crisis, and he said the one-page wealth compass gave him the exact financial hope and practical steps he needed. But here's the part of the quote I like the most. He says, I couldn't put the book down. That's how it's written. It's written in stories that are real and that people aren't going to find dry and boring and are going to put you to sleep. And that's where I think I don't want to intimidate anybody. I want people to realize that if you have zero financial background, this is something you'll get, and you'll get pretty easily.
That's pretty awesome. And David, no one leaves the show without providing some actionable insights, and we've gotten some really good ones from you. But if there was one thing that you would tell our listeners they have to do today, what would that be?
Well, it would be this. Clear direction beats misdirected speed every time. For 40 years, I had misdirected speed. I was going fast, but I was going nowhere. Finally, when I got this one-page compass, I suddenly had the clear direction I hadn't had before. I would ask everybody that's listening to this show, please, I get no money out of this whatsoever, no financial benefit. Go to onepagewealthcompass.com/free and download this compass for yourself. It's what got me from 63 broke and fired to 69 a millionaire. Now I'm multimillionaire using this simple one-page compass. Onepagewealthcompass.com/free is what I recommend them doing.
And I appreciate you making that available to our listeners. And as we wrap up today's inspiring conversation, how many people have you heard going, tripling their income, not their income, but their wealth after having gone through an experience like that? Very inspirational story. It's clear that financial success doesn't come from complexity, but rather from radical simplicity. David's journey shows us that it's never too late to transform our lives and our businesses, illustrating the power of clarity and strategic decision-making. Remember, deploying a financial compass, automating your savings, and pre-funding reserves are not just theoretical concepts. They're actionable steps you can take to navigate your financial future with confidence. Thanks for joining us today From Stuck to Scaled. If you found value in David's insights, be sure to subscribe and share this episode with fellow business leaders. Until next time, keep striving for financial clarity and operational excellence. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Julio. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, produced by Allocation, LLC. For more information, tools, and resources, check out our website, www.allocation.com/podcast.